Growing up in the 80s, there were two bands that hailed from Boston that I truly loved. They were the Cars. Man, that first album was amazing. And then there was Boston. And guess what? That first album was also equally phenomenal. Both albums were the kind of debuts where, you know what? They kind of felt like greatest hits albums. Home runs on their very first try. We're going to forego talking about the Cars today because I want to focus on Tom Scholz and team. Like I said, that first album, well, to this day, I can press play and listen to the whole thing without even once feeling the need to skip to the next track. It's just that good. Boston's debut album, I believe, is one of the top-selling debut albums of all time. I was still pretty young when it came out, but holy cow, I sure would have liked to have caught them live back then. I mean, just look at this concert poster. You've got Boston, Sabbath, Van Halen, and Sammy Hagar. What an incredible lineup. And my favorite song on that debut album was More Than a Feeling. Everything about it kind of just blew me away. The guitar work by Scholz was through the roof. And when Delp sang about this girl named Mary Ann, I wasn't sure why she was walking away, but I had this feeling that if the lyrics were based on something that was real, then that girl Mary Ann had somehow slipped away and was no longer part of the picture. Way back then, I remember my friends telling me that Mary Ann wasn't real, that the character was just made up for the song for dramatic purposes. But recently, I read an interview with Tom Scholz that contradicts what I had believed all these years. You see, Mary Ann was real. She was an older cousin of Tom's, and she was strikingly beautiful and definitely unattainable. But the important thing to know, folks, is that Mary Ann was indeed based upon someone real in Tom Scholz's life. As long as we're talking about Boston, here are a couple more memories and thoughts. The band's follow-up album, while not quite as strong in my opinion, was still pretty darn good. And the song Don't Look Back, well, way back then I was convinced that it was the best song ever written. Even better than More Than a Feeling. Do I feel that way now? Nah, but you get it. Fans back then loved the album, and the band hit the road and promised to return to the studio after the tour was over. Of course, they didn't. Well, at least that's what it seemed like. Truth is, they did. They even managed to record a few songs, but one catastrophe after another, plus Tom Scholz being something of a perfectionist, resulted in what seemed like radio silence for fans. And then in the mid-'80s, right before Live Aid, a friend told me that he'd heard a new song by Boston. Some radio station was playing a bootleg copy of new music by Tom and team, and from what he said, it was incredible. I kept my ears peeled, my eyes open, watched a ton of MTV, even hit the library to read Billboard magazine. This was before the internet, folks. But there was nothing. In the end, I would have to wait 2 more years to finally hear the song that my friend had heard. But you know what? It was worth the wait. That first single from the third album by Boston, titled Third Stage, the song was Amanda, of course, that would be a huge hit. It was a sweet victory for Tom Scholz, who had been taken to court by his prior label, CBS Records. Unlike the Cars, Boston chose to ignore MTV, and they did things old school. Truthfully, I can't remember any videos for the album, but I do remember them hitting the road, going on tour to support that new album. I'm not going to make a video about Boston without talking about Brad Delp. All I can say is rest in peace, my friend. Clinical depression is a horrible thing. We have absolutely got to start treating this affliction more seriously, the way we treat cancer and MS. It's a life-threatening disease that threatens so many people on a daily basis. Boston, with Tom behind the wheel, continues to record and tour, and they are great. They really are. But there is something truly magical about those first 3 albums. I love them so much, and I'm very grateful that they were part of my musical landscape growing up. So that's it. One last picture, this time from the Don't Look Back album. Alright, now it's your turn. Were you a fan of Boston, and in particular that first album? If so, please share your memories in the comments section, and while you're at it, I'd love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Maybe even share it on Facebook or Twitter, and I would be absolutely honored if you would consider subscribing to this little Retro Music Memories channel. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.